Previously on Funny Science Fiction.
What two characters would you like to see come together and to have their own show together?
Me and Spock. That's what I want. I've always wanted that.
Hey, this is Mick Wingert, and you're listening to the Funny Science Fiction Podcast.
I'm the voice of Heimerdinger, and we're about to go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The podcast that convinced Thanos to snap his fingers. I don't know, maybe he was right.
Our show is brought to you by our charity sponsor, the Red Shirt Widows and Orphans Fund, which supports the Wish Upon a Teen Foundation and helps out sick kids when they need it most. And just imagine the comfort you'll give Red Shirt crewman number 86. He'll know that when he puts on the red shirt and joins Heimerdinger in scientific research, that he didn't leave his family destitute and without hope, because the Red Shirt Widows and Orphans Fund has his back and what's left of his hedge tech.
All right, so our guest today is a very talented voiceover artist known for roles such as Tony Stark and Iron Man and many of Marvel's animated series, such as What If. There's a whole bunch more. You can go look him up. You may know him best really as Heimerdinger from Arcane. He's also done the voice of Poe from Kung Fu Panda, Koslow from Attack on Titan, and many, and I do mean many, many, many more. He's got an awesome IMDb list, and as I went through it, it was one of those things just like, oh, I want to talk to him about that. Oh, if we did talk to him about everything I had on the list I wanted to talk to him about, this would be like a 12-part miniseries, but we're gonna cut it down to just a couple things. With all that being said, very excited to welcome Mick Wingert to the Funny Science Fiction Podcast. Welcome, Mick.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. So glad. You're the one. Thank you so much. No, thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here, guys.
Yeah, we are.
Talk about.
We are excited, honestly, to talk with you. We've been kind of shooting notes back and forth to each other over the last week about the things that we would talk about, and
I love it.
And all that. Yeah, we get excited to talk to people who do the things. We love voice actors on this show. You guys are the best. We said that in pre-show. We weren't joking. We honestly mean it. Because there's usually some really cool stories and things that come along with, talking to voice actors. And so, but before we get into the meat and potatoes of your work and dive into anything that's in role specific, we want to know how you got from there to here, your origin story, so to speak. So what were the influences in your life that helped you pursue a life in the performing arts and moreover with voice acting?
Yeah. Gosh, how do I keep it down to a nutshell? Because you take 47 long years and you try to put it into 20 minutes or less, and it all falls apart. What I'll say is that I got started in the Central Valley of California, which woot woot Fresno. Here's a shout out to all my Fresno homies. And I basically started when I was a little kid, 7 or 8 years old. First of all, I'd always had a huge personality, so always trying to cut up at home, and had other family members. Like I have an uncle who, when we would get together for family get-togethers, he would do all his standard impressions, and he'd bring them out every Thanksgiving and every Christmas. This is my Uncle Greg. Shout out to Uncle Greg. And I would just start matching him tit for tat, right? So like he'd start cutting up, and he's kind of the family clown, and I'd just start matching. Now bear in mind, this is like the early 80s, so like he was doing Rodney Dangerfield, right? Like none of your listeners are even know who that is. I once worked with Rodney Dangerfield. Let me tell you, that man is a blessing. Then, and he'd bring up his Ronald Reagan, oh my, yes, Nancy and I, and he'd do his little gosh, what was the name of that duck? It wasn't Donald Duck. I know it sounds like Donald Duck, but it was the duck from like the Tom and Jerry universe. From
I know who you're talking about.
And he'd always ask, "Are you my mama?" And
oh yeah,
wasn't like
that little squeaky duck.
He was like, was it Baby Huey?
No, it wasn't.
No, I thought it was like Quackers or Quackers the duck,
something like that. Either way, he would do that little duck, and
that duck,
that was like the one I couldn't hit, and I was like, "Oh, Uncle Greg got me again." But that's kind of how I started. Back to from the rabbit trail. My parents needed childcare, I'm sure, very often during the hot summers of Fresno. Both were working parents, so I got stuck in drama camps, and I flourished. So ended up doing community theater. I had the great fortune of going to a magnet program that was fairly rare during those days. This was by this point late 80s, early 90s, in Fresno, called Roosevelt School of the Arts, and they just pulled all the best arts people that they had at their disposal, they being Fresno Unified, and they pulled everybody who knew how to teach everything in music and dance and visual art and radio, television, and of course theater and drama and all of those things. So I got to go to that program, and that was really the core of my theatrical training. And post college, I was gonna just do a workaday job, and then realized I hated being in an office. And
Fair enough.
and so I was like, yeah, I'm thinking this is probably not the right fit for me, but that acting thing was fun. So I got back into acting and moved to Southern California in 2004, specifically to do cartoons because of family history, whether it was cutting up with Uncle Greg at holidays or watching cartoons with my dad on Saturday mornings and weekday afternoons. Regardless, like, this was my fandom, and so I thought, if I'm going to make a living doing anything, I want it to be this. That's how I got here.
That's awesome. I'd like to point out that I am actually old enough to know who all those impressions were in the beginning.
Yeah, let's hear it for the old farts.
Yay! Oh, I think I pulled a muscle pulling up my arm. Okay.
And the duck's name is Quacker.
Quacker, yes.
I was close. All right.
I'm like,
Yep.
I know which one you're talking about. I know that episode. I have to look it up. I found it.
Yeah. I just pluraled his name. It's all right. Cool.
It's all good.
See,
That's close enough.
The older ones know all of the impressions. The younger ones know how to use Google.
I was actually just leaving it up to the younger person on our, because she's gonna Google it anyway. I'm like, why do I need to look for it? She's gonna do it. So
I'm just going to see myself out. You guys take care of that.
Well, that's cool. That's a nice background story.
That is a really cool backstory. And I was actually looking into your history and your backstory, and I found your website, and I was reading your bio on your website, and I actually was
That ancient thing.
I was intrigued by the last part of your bio specifically. I'm going to directly quote it because it made me laugh. With the Mick Wingert and his wife Shauna have 2 boys, a dog, a cat, 4 leopard geckos, a bearded dragon, a red-tailed boa, a box turtle, a leopard tortoise, an albino corn snake, a corn snake, a missing tegu, and other assorted Pokemon.
Yes. Yeah.
And other picture postcards.
It was the missing tegu that piqued my interest the most.
Yeah, since that version of the bio was written, the Tegu was found. Not in one place.
Oh boy. Had the
my boys
found said Tegu
I have
makers.
my 2 boys who are now in their mid and late teen years collected small animals and reptiles as pets over the course of their upbringing, and at one point we literally had that list of pets. We had 4 leopard geckos. We had a box turtle. We had, you read the list. The missing tegu, I think when I wrote that bio, the tegu had gotten out and it was still a juvenile. And in the neighborhood in which we lived, this tegu, which for those of you who don't know what a tegu is, it is a large, and they grow to be very large lizards. Okay, so they're almost like monitor lizards, but they're super jowly up front. Mm-hmm. Well, when they're juveniles, they're still fairly sleek looking, and I would say this lizard, not counting the tail, like head to hind, was about that long, and it was about yay thick, right? And it was it would get to be about head to hind about this long, plus a tail of like that long. And and it had gotten out, and we could not catch it again because the lizard bites. Like, I don't know how my wife got talked into buying this thing for my son, but my son was all about the tegu, and she bought it, and we had it, we kept it, we were gonna walk it on a leash because we watched it on YouTube videos. This tegu bit frequently, so like feeding him was a chore and managing him was a chore, and he got out. And not only did he get out, but in the neighborhood in which we lived, there were like 2 like drainage pipes. They didn't go to the sewer. They were just for like run through, like because we lived kind of at the bottom of a hill. So they were just for water to drain from street to street and just do the flow into water management.
Mm-hmm.
He would live between these 2 stupid pipes. And I'd go to one pipe to catch him with a net or with we didn't have any bite gloves at the time. If I had some bite gloves, that I'd have caught that stinker right there. But I didn't have those at the time because we'd never had a tegu before. And I'd go to get this thing, and he would way back into the pipe, and I couldn't get him. And then we'd see him cross the street. And he'd go to the other pipe. And then our neighbors are like, did you lose a lizard or something? Because there's a very large lizard who is eating our fruit back off the trees in our backyard. I mean, it's fine. The trees overproduce anyway. But, we don't know where this came from. Do you know where the tegu came from? They didn't call it a tegu, but do you know where that big lizard came from? Is that yours? And I'm like, it's my lizard. I don't want it, but I have to own it. Anyway, long story endless. This is kind of funny. So for young listeners, I have to give, trigger warning here. The tegu, I'm about to talk about what became of the tegu. If you have sensitive listeners, this would be a good time to fast forward. Maybe I'll try to keep it brief. Maybe fast forward a good 20 seconds or something. The tegu was in between his little holes, and another neighbor ran over him. Now, inside, my wife and I were both going, yes, the tegu's gone. But outside, we were like, oh, yeah, oh, no, not the tegu. Such a sweet, sweet boy. And we never bought another large lizard, monitor or otherwise, again. The funny thing is that the neighbor had pulled in with their car when we weren't home. And that's when the car met the tegu. And so I promise, if you just fast forwarded to this moment, I'm almost done. Fast forward maybe another 10 seconds. So when we got home from like a weekend trip or something, the neighbor comes up and says, we've been keeping the remains of this tegu for you. We're so sorry we hid it. We're so sorry. She brings out a Ziploc bag, and there's a frozen... There is a frozen lizard in the bag. No. I'm not kidding you. You can't write this. Oh no. My kids are the age when this is all happening where they're like watching these Disney kids sitcoms, and I'm like, there's no writer in Hollywood that would have come up with that. That is too good. So she gives us, and my wife puts on the morning pet owner. Oh. Thank you so much. You're so caring. Thank you for saving the remains. We were good. Thank you. It's just so kind. And she's like, when she gets in the house, she's like, oh my God, let's get rid of this. Quick before the boys sees it. And that is the saga. I've never told that story on any other podcast. That is a funny science fiction podcast exclusive.
You heard it here first, folks.
That is even better than I was anticipating. I was expecting it escaped, we found it, like just your typical the hamster got out and it was under the couch sort of story. No, that's way better.
No, that's way better. I'd also like to point out that 3/4 of the pets that are listed in that menagerie there, in the words of Bishop Bullwinkle, are a whole lot of hell nah to the nah.
Pretty much, yes.
Because you have geckos and lizards and snakes, and as far as I'm concerned, they're all snakes. Just some of them have legs,
right?
And I don't like snakes or anything that looks like a snake. And I used to have a friend who had a bearded dragon. He's like, "Oh, look, and see how nice it is and how gentle it is." And I'm like, "Yeah, no, just get that the hell away from me."
Yeah, right. The bearded dragon is the least of our problem. We still have the bearded dragon, which is nice. So we call him LB for little biscuit, and we'll just say that. And he's got a little bit of an attitude. He loves lettuce, though. One time I brought lettuce to the lizard because it's my job to feed the animals. because they're my son's pets, but he's not interested enough to actually take care
Oh,
of
of course, yeah.
them.
I understand
so-
that all too well.
Yeah.
So I bringing lettuce to the lizard, and I guess it had been too long since his last feeding, so he was really hungry. And as the doors were open, as soon as he saw me like snap those greens to like break them up for him, he literally, it was a front opening cage. He jumped out of the cage onto my chest. I was like, "Ah!" And there was like lettuce everywhere. There was lettuce everywhere because this little bearded dragon was going kamikaze mode to get some freaking food. I was like, it's been too long. I'm so sorry. Let me give you some food. I'm a terrible
Y'all had to have a defibrillator there for me because that'd have been Tim punching his ticket right there. Just
I'd been Tim going, no, Tim, stay with us. Stay with us, Tim.
Tim in his poor heart condition anyway.
Right?
Don't go towards the light.
No,
light
stay
came
away
and
from the light, Tim.
scared him.
When you mentioned your neighbor brought the frozen Tagoo, I was like, what's for dinner? Tagoo?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This will go nicely with the lettuce.
Some families have pasta and ragu. We have tegu as well.
It was, as I'm reading through that bio though, and I'm like, they have a zoo.
At that time we did, and I left it on there because it's really funny, and it's kind of a litmus test to see who actually reads these things. So, you pass. Yay! Congratulations, Kathleen, you pass. You get a gold star.
Yeah, I love gold stars. They're my favorite. Yeah.
So I personally have been a League of Legends fan for quite some time, and towards the beginning, not quite the beginning, but Arcane was everything that I have ever hoped for.
Oh, good.
So, were you a fan of League before doing the voice of Heimerdinger?
You know, I'm just going to be super straightforward with you and disappoint your whole fandom. I'm sorry I wasn't. But that's not because I disdained it or whatnot. I just wasn't exposed to League of Legends as a game.
Same.
My kids, that was just not their game of choice. The one that my younger son plays is Overwatch. And so if you were to ask me about Overwatch, I'd be like, oh, yeah, I know all the characters and I know what rank they are and I know what class they play. But in terms of League, I really wasn't familiar with the property until I jumped into Arcane. As I have said in other interviews, so I'll try to make it brief, like I certainly was aware of League of Legends. I was aware of what style of game it was. I even know some of the actors in it as a game property. And I made sure when I got the audition for Heimerdinger, because that was a character that I booked out of an audition. Not all of them are. Sometimes you get invited to come in because you've worked with so-and-so before and they know your work and all that kind of stuff. This one was, we're looking for Heimerdinger. I booked it out of the booth, and the reason I think I did is because I tried to. They were very specific in their audition materials that they really wanted this to be, kind of gritty, down to earth, very realistic, three-dimensional characters who lived and breathed in a very real world, though it had fantasy elements. They specifically did not ask for a voice match for the character in the game, but somehow I knew the name Heimerdinger, so I looked him up. I knew that was a character from a game franchise, and it turned out to be League of Legends. I looked up the previous voice actor's work, and I tried to pay homage to the original. A lot of the voice work I've done over the years has been voice matching, and I'm a huge, I'm your continuity cop in your group of friends. I'm the one who's like, well, in episode 3, he didn't say that. He said this. I don't know how the catchphrase changed, but somewhere between episode 3 and where he says it again in episode 7, it became instead of the. I don't know. But I'm watching. So I'm like being the continuity guy. Every time I have ever tried to do voice match, if somebody can't tell it's not the original actor, I feel like I've done my job. So it's not great for brand building. It's not great for getting the name Mick Wingert out there. But for example, I did Goosebumps 2, Haunted Halloween, and I was the voice of Slappy. And they brought me in because I'm a sound-alike for Jack Black. And Jack had done the voice of Slappy in the first film. And they wanted the continuity of that character in the films. So even though they got somebody else to do it, my job, if I got people to think that that Jack did the voice of the dummy in that movie, I was happier and pleased as punch. More happy than if somebody came up to me and said, I love you as Slappy and Goosebumps too. Oh my gosh, it's so funny and blah, blah, blah. I mean, I like to hear that too, but if somebody comes up and says, you were in that? I saw that. I thought that was Jack Black. You're welcome. You're welcome. Continuity Cop has done his job. I'm making sure that the through line is pure. But anyway, so yeah, I try to do that with Heimer, and so in that way, even though I wasn't familiar with the franchise beforehand, I definitely tried to give it the propers and the respects that it deserves. I know there's a lot of fans out there.
You could almost call yourself Jack Black's voice stunt double.
Kind of. It's true.
So it's interesting that you the way you phrase that, because my next question for you actually has to do with taking over the voice acting for Tony Stark and Marvel. Now that was one that Adrian had done previously. You jumped in for him after, in I think it was season 4 of Avengers Assemble. I think it was when you started.
That's correct.
Yeah. So
good job.
Oh, thank you. My research has paid off. That wasn't even in my notes. All right. Where I noticed you first and where I was excited, was with What If. I honestly, I hadn't watched a lot of the Avengers Assembled. I watched some of it, but not a ton of it. But I watched all of What If, and I was floored by that series, as a lot of people were. I was very happy with what was done there. And you picked up again voicing him there. What I found most interesting, though, was the number of news articles that came out at the time when What If came out, saying that RDJ, Robert Downey Jr., had been recast, because the voice did not match. And I'm like, well, you dummies, of course it's not going to match. Typically animated doesn't have the same actor as live action. The one from What If that was not the case for was Doctor Strange. Benedict Cumberbatch did both, which was unusual. Yeah, exactly. There's a whole lot of other ways we can do with that, but
butternut crinkle fries.
Yes.
Yeah, that's actually one of my favorites. But yeah, so this whole topic was brought up in a Newsweek article, which mentions you specifically, talks about you. And there's a whole bunch of articles that actually praised your work and the fact that you sounded so much like Robert Downey Jr. And I thought you did a very good job at that as well. I knew going into it wasn't Robert Downey Jr. I had no expectations of it being Robert Downey Jr. But I think that, for such a large name to be, a large character, you have to do what you said there, and being the continuity cop, making sure that it sounded like what people were used to. And I thought you did a really good job from that.
Thank you.
So I led all of that to ask you 2 questions. Number one, what's it like being talked about in a major news publication like Newsweek or Comic Book Review and things like that?
Yeah.
And then number 2, the second half of this question, what do you enjoy most about portraying Tony Stark, aka Iron Man, other than saying, I am Iron Man?
To answer question number 1, it's mind-blowing. We're all any actor who tells you that they're not pursuing fame of some kind is lying to themselves, much less lying to you. We all are in this business to get some recognition and adulation. It all goes back to our broken childhoods, but I digress. So it feels great to be mentioned in places like that, but it can also be crushing for the ego. I think what blew me away the most was that I have spent most of my career building up a subtle little fan base of folks who recognize and follow voice actors, but not mainstream people at all, not a mainstream audience.
Sure.
And to be referenced in the same, I mean, there was like 3 paragraphs about my career. They never talked to me. They didn't interview me. They just did a deep dive, as you kind of did, on my IMDb, and they just put 2 and 2 together and gave me 3 paragraphs at the end of the article about RDJ. And I'm like, I'm in Newsweek.
Yeah.
What the hell just happened? This doesn't happen to voice actors. I mean, it does to like major voice actors. I'm sure Tara Strong's been in Newsweek, but like, I'm just the voice match guy. What is going on? It was much bigger than I had ever anticipated. So that was mind-blowing in a good way. And
Mhm.
what was so really frustrating was at the time, because Robert had made such a clear and definite break from the Marvel universe,
Right.
the folks at Disney and Marvel, in terms of their publicity, were trying to just underplay that the role had been recast. And it wasn't recast because they didn't like him or couldn't get him. I'm sure if they threw enough money, they would have got him. And I'm sure they would have been willing to throw that kind of money at him for What If. He was just done. He was like,
Yeah.
I'm done. This is it. I'm not
Right.
going to be known as Iron Man for the rest of my life. And I get it. That's cool. More's the opportunity for me,
Right.
and other actors of my ilk. So how does it feel to play Tony Stark? It's a huge weight. I will say they worked with me on at least one callback. They really liked the acting I was bringing to the party. But then when I booked the gig, the first thing they did was they said, we want to bring Mick in for a meeting before we even get into the studio. And I just basically sat down with Brian Andrews, who's the showrunner on What If, and he was like, well, Kevin was really, happy with everything overall, but we just want, we think you've got a really good, like, young Tony from, like, the original films. You've got your voice is lighter, so we just really want to make sure, before you come into the studio, rewatch Endgame, rewatch Infinity War, just familiarize yourself with more mature Tony, and typically when I'm doing Tony Stark, I automatically just kind of go up here like that to hit that Robert Downey Jr. thing. But as you find in the later movies, he's actually a lot more subtle. Like, this is like, I dreamed we had a kid. We had or Earth is closed today. So pack up your spaceship and go home. Or whatever. So,
Nice.
thank you. So those moments, it was a huge pressure because I knew they wanted as close as possible. And listen, the dirty little Hollywood secret about most major films is that some percentage of dialogue that is done, that makes it to the final screen, for most actors is a voice match. Now, I didn't do any voice matching on the Marvel films at all, but I do know that Robert Downey Jr.'s lines were voice matched. Some of them were voice matched.
Okay.
And actually, I take that back. I did a little bit of voice matching, I think, on Spider-Man: No Way Home, but maybe just a line or half a line. Most of that is either a different voice match, or it's Robert himself. And what happens is they get everything the day they shoot, and then because of background noise and get the sound as controlled as possible, everybody basically comes in and re-records the whole film. And if the celebrity actor's not available to re-record the whole film, they'll bring in a voice match. And when you're watching those huge scrolls of credits to get to that extra scene, you might see that little list that says additional voices. And that's talking about everybody who's in the background doing voices for the extras who were on set silent. They were all doing this. And then a bunch of, Loop Troop people came in, additional voices came in and filled in their dialogue, right? How's your sister today? Really? And what does Bobby say? Oh, really? I'll have the steak, please. Like, all of those things in a cafe scene, in a big scene. So when the celebrity's not there, I'm saying this by way of saying, I know that there are other voice matches out there that might actually sound closer to him, but I'm very privileged and dare I say proud of the fact that they went with me because they really felt like my acting audition was the strongest. And so
That's awesome.
That's when it came down to, do we believe him vocally or do we believe him emotionally? They went for emotionally, and I got the nod. So that was a huge kudo to me. And it's always just cool to play the coolest guy in the room. It's always fun to play the guy who's smarter than everybody else, right? And he's going to make a quip, nice glasses. I love those. Love those. He's just the guy that's Blueberry. Like, the irreverency that comes with being so brilliant. You know you
Right.
you know you have to kind of dumb yourself down to, or at least you think you have to dumb yourself down to operate on somebody else's level. I'm sure Justin Roiland gets the same feeling when he gets to play Rick Sanchez, because that's the same kind of character. He's just much more of a jerk about it, right?
Mhm.
Where he comes in and he has to lower his IQ to relate to the rest of the family. But there is some sort of freedom in playing like the coolest, hippest guy in the room
Right.
to, to kind of be top cat in the room. So
Thank you.
I love playing Tony Stark. Every chance I get, I will. And I don't know what the MCU has in store moving forward, but as often as they invite me back to the dance, I'm gonna punch my dance card and get on the floor.
Oh, absolutely.
Awesome.
And in all honesty, just kudos to you. I think you've done a fantastic job with it. Even today, I rewatched What If episode 5. What if Killmonger saved Tony Stark? And there's a couple of, especially those opening scenes there of that episode are so iconic because they're almost scene for scene match with the original Iron Man movie, riding through the desert in the convoy and the conversations that happened there. And that's where, when I was watching that, I was like, man, he does a really good Tony Stark. I mean, it's very impressive how close you are to the sound of Robert Downey Jr. It's clear that you're not Robert, but it's also clear that you're doing a very good job with the acting. And that really, in that sense, that's the most important thing, because you carry not only the sound of Iron Man, but you have the ability to put off the personality of Tony Stark. Clearly, I was, Kevin Feige never called me for my, my thoughts on it, but not for this,
Not this
one
time.
anymore.
Not
this time.
He will.
We have a lunch date later to talk about somebody else, but
Got it.
But I'm assuming, and this is just me on the outside looking in, that if they were talking about how your acting was the strongest, I'm looking at the way that you carry the personality, because it is such a strong personality, and for all the things that you just mentioned, that, doing the quips and doing the irreverent conversation, and just the way his personality, he's very flippant about things. And I think that's a hard personality to match, but I think that your acting carries it off very well. So
Thank you.
Kudos to you for the way that you handle that.
I appreciate that. And in saying so, I wasn't begging for a compliment, though I will keep taking them. So please.
Oh, no.
But I wasn't begging for one, and I appreciate you saying so very much.
No, I'm more than happy to hand them out if they're deserved. So
Is that why I never get complimented?
So anyway, now
I'm
to
going
the
to
next
see
question.
myself out. Bye, you guys.
Nick's like, hey, would you look at the time? I got a thing to catch
Wow,
over there.
there's the thing I missed. The guy.
Oh, look, another Tegu's over there.
My Tegu.
My gloves.
So with the voice matching, because that's not something I don't feel like that's something a lot of people understand with voice acting, is that you have voice matchers as well. That you can't necessarily have Robert Downey Jr. come in for every role. You can't have Jack Black come in for every role.
Yeah.
Do you sometimes struggle with being associated with these characters that are really known by the bigger stars?
Yeah, I'm struggling every time I need to make a car payment. I'm just kidding. That's not it at all. Here's the thing. There is always, especially for us, look, I'm one of the voice actors, and there are many of us. I'm one of the guys who came to this industry kind of on the backs of the people who fell into the industry. So you had your Mel Blancs and your Dawes Butlers and Thurl Ravenscrofts and all those guys who did it forever, but they were actors first and foremost, and they made a niche in cartoons. And then you had your generation kind of in the 80s Saturday morning era, when you had your Sue Blues and your Casey Kasems and your Rob Paulsons getting a start, and your Pat Fraleys and some of those folks who were working with these legends who kind of started the craft. And every person I just mentioned came to the table to really do something else. Like either to just be an on-camera actor wherever they could work, or came from broadcast like a Gary Owens or a Casey Kasem, right? And they had something to bring to the party when it came to animation. And it wasn't until this is just my personal theory. This isn't precise history here, but I would say it wasn't until the late 80s as we started coming out of the Saturday morning cycle and into the cartoons all the time, cartoon networks and like Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network and eventually Boomerang and all of these other like areas where programming was not so locked into a broadcast schedule, that we had the Renaissance, the Warner Brothers Renaissance that was happening around the same time as the Disney feature film Renaissance. And that was really Tiny Toons, Animaniacs, and Batman the Animated Series and its spin-offs. Those handful of cartoons from Warner Brothers Animation in the late 80s, into the early 90s, captured a generation of older viewers who were high school and post-high school that grew up watching Super Friends and He-Man and Transformers and She-Ra and Strawberry Shortcake and all these other toy-based IPs after school and on Saturday mornings. And we were like, yeah, we do still like animation. And not only do we still like it, we still want to watch it. And the stuff that Bruce Timm and Paul Dini and Spielberg and his writing crew are doing with these kinds of cartoons, we really like. And a lot of folks about my generation age said, I do want to be an actor, but I don't want to be on camera. I want to go do that Batman thing that Kevin Conroy's doing, that Mark Hamill Joker. Who'd have thought Luke Skywalker would be the best Joker ever? I want to do that. And again, this is just personal theory. I'm saying it like it's, gospel truth, but this is just from my perspective. Keeping my, ear to the ground to the industry as best I can. We're in the era now where it's now the floodgates have opened, and everybody who's a fan of animation, who's a fan of cartoons, who's a fan of voiceover actors, is considering, hey, maybe there could be a career for me in that too. Whereas the generation before, whether it was Maurice LaMarche or Sue Blue or Rob Paulson or even Jess Harnell, like came to Los Angeles or lived in Los Angeles and was doing other things and was like, oh yeah, I could probably do a voice of that character. And oh, you need 3 more? Yeah, that's easy. I'll just do 3 different voices. And they got those seats at the table by falling into that as a career and then specializing in it. Not to take anything away from anybody, but that's just kind of how, like, the casting was a lot more, it wasn't so dramatically different. Like, all lanes, you were auditioning across the board for any gigs that you could. And once you got in a lane, that's where you tended to stay. So if you booked feature film, you ended up being a film actor. And, God help you if you were ever going to do television, because you're a film actor, right? But again, like, you were auditioning across the board. And now people are like, no, I only have a voiceover agent, or I only have an on-camera agent, or, I only do performance capture, or that's what I'm really specializing in. I don't know if I didn't mean to bore you.
No, you're good. This is actually fascinating.
No, we liked
to
it.
me.
Oh, we like answers with more information.
It's the Boring Science Fiction Podcast with Mick Wingert.
No, I find it fascinating because there is so much to voice acting that if you're not in the industry, you don't understand. You don't see how much goes into it because we never see you guys. We don't know who voice actors are because they're the voices. And it's when you look into a voice actor's career that you're like, oh wait, they have 800 credits. How did I not know that was all the same person?
Right. Yeah, and typically a lot of times the only time we're on from the viewing side of things that we're alerted to somebody being in a project is if A, it's a major project that's getting a lot of money and a lot of network or studio push, or B, it's a massive name that's going to be in said project and they want that, that massive name has to have the title recognition that comes along with having that name,
like having Mark Hamill is the Joker, because that gets your attention to the animated Batman show.
Or butternut squash crinkle fries being in and I can say that because he's never going to be on our show because just
because we might talk about penguins.
You wait, he'll be here and he'll be like, so what was my name?
I've said that about other people, but it's happened.
And look, that's exactly why I say it now, because it's worked once.
Yes.
Maybe it'll work again.
Exactly. There you go.
Mark Hamill will never be on the show either. Or Nathan Fillion, or Felicia Day, or can we just keep listing all of the people
Just
that we
keep
want?
just
Oh, I've got a list.
We do.
I'm sure. I don't even know if I answered your question though about voice
You totally
matching.
did, though. Like,
Okay, cool.
You did.
Yeah.
You did.
it's-
Yeah, you did a great job of it.
Thank you.
So, as it's been stated, we love stories. And one of the things we don't get to see or hear all too often are the bloopers or gag reels of voice actors. So, do you have a memorable or funny behind the scenes moment that you just really enjoyed?
Oh my gosh, not that I'm ready to present off the cuff. Gosh, I mean, I've been doing this now since 2008, so that's a good 14 years because that's about when I hit. I came down here in 2004. But gosh, is there I mean, beyond, accidentally cussing as the characters,
Right.
because you blow the line delivery, that's always fun. Or whatnot. Like I never walked into the wrong studio or, there've been plenty of times where I've said somebody else's line for sure. But I'm trying to think if there's anything memorable that just cut up the room. I'm sure there is. I'm sure that one of my peers is going to hear this interview and they go, I can't believe you didn't mention the time on Kung Fu Panda Legends of Awesomeness when X happened. But I cannot think of X for the life of me right now. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Well, just kind of keep that in your
This is
mind,
not
and if you get an answer later, we can.
Honestly, the
Take your answer
idea
to that.
of accidentally cursing in character is hilarious.
Right?
To me.
All I want now is a gag reel of Heimerdinger cursing. That's all I want.
Well,
But creative cursing.
Just seems exactly. It just seems like a lot of fun. All right, so you have also done a bunch of anime work, and I almost used the very scientific measurement of crap ton, but held off because you're about three credits short of crap ton. But so for right now, we'll just say bunch.
a bunch, yes.
You've done a bunch, and that's also a very scientific measurement. It's a bunch. However, we've talked with other people who've done voice work in anime sessions, and they talk about, doing the English version character dubs of of those shows, and they've talked about challenges that they felt, the challenges that the role presents sometimes. So, from your position, your point of view, what are the challenges for an American actor doing the English version dub of a Japanese character?
Well, at the risk of kind of duplicating what you might have already heard, one of the biggest things is the fact that you have to lock into the picture. The fact that the picture exists before your performance is a hurdle that a lot of performers don't learn to overcome. In fact, one of my first dubbing gigs wasn't my very first, but one of the first was we were recording Avengers Assemble, the 4th season, and Disney had just purchased, well, not purchased, but I guess Disney had just licensed the rights to a Marvel property that was created for the Japanese market called Marvel Future Avengers, and it's done totally anime style. You can watch it on Disney Plus right now if you subscribe to Disney Plus for just $5.99 a month. Future Avengers, and it was your cast of Avengers characters in the Marvel universe, but set in Tokyo, and with 3 superpowered kids that are thrown into the mix to be kind of like the next generation of Avengers. And so they asked me to play Tony Stark because I was playing Tony in the cartoon, in the Assemble cartoon. And I said, of course, yes, any chance I get to play this guy because he's the coolest superhero in the room, whatever room he's in. Yes, let's make this happen. So I got in there, and after a couple of sessions, so this is over the course of 3 or 4 weeks. I'm in there, and I'm doing my thing, and I'm starting to pat myself on the back a little bit. I'm like, I think I'm getting better at this. I think I'm getting better at matching. And of course, because this Japanese series, this anime, is coinciding with the MCU and the development of the MCU, not the Fox X-Men properties of way back when, or is it Fox? Yeah. Not the Fox X-Men properties of way back when, not Fantastic Four, not Spidey from Sony. They are into Avengers, traditional, Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Hulk, blah. So they are writing and overwriting Tony so much. He's got all the speeches. And I'm starting to pat myself. I'm getting used to this now. I think I can hit it. And turned to Kirk Thornton, who is a voiceover legend and someone you should consider interviewing if you haven't already. I turned to Kirk Thornton, who's the director, and I said, "Yeah, I'm feeling more confident. Like when I first got in here, I wasn't as confident, but I'm starting to find the flow a little bit, and how and when to use short-term memory, and how and when to read, the line to the picture, and because you got to look at the lines while looking at the picture, and you literally can't look in two places at once, not without severe injury to yourself." And he goes, "Oh yeah, oh yeah, you're getting much better. You're really great when the mask is down." Which he meant the Iron Man mask. And when the Iron Man mask is down, I don't have to match any of the lip flaps, so I could talk all day. And it wouldn't matter. And I'm like, I'm gonna remember that. I'm gonna remember that. If that might be a funny blooper for you, is me patting myself on the back and Kirk Thornton quickly putting me out of place, saying, "Oh yeah, when you don't have to match lip flap, you're great. You're great."
I love it. Lip flap. I love it.
Part of me is like, oh. You mean the part that's actually easy that anyone could do? I'm good at. Okay, I'll see myself out.
Holly, thanks.
Yeah, right. Thanks, Kirk. Appreciate it. He meant it in good fun, and Kirk is a friend of mine, and I love working with him, and I think he feels the same way about me. So I don't think it wasn't said in bad blood, but it was very funny at the time. Because here I was begging for the compliment of, "Oh yeah, you're getting much better. Oh, you're right on," and the truth of the matter is that I was okay. I wasn't great. I wasn't terrible. I was okay. And I've gotten better, and it's become easier to hit the timing. And depending on the show, like some of these shows, I was just dubbing one today before I had this podcast, and it was, I was playing a creature character, and most of my cues or lines were grunts and exertions and noises and things. And there isn't a whole lot of delicate timing. But when your character has 3 pages of cues that is your speech, and they have to be timed to the flapping of the mouth that's on the screen that cannot change. That's really difficult. And I would hold up any of my dubbing peers to any of my other peers in traditional, US style animation, what dubbers tend to call prelay, because you lay the voice down before the animation comes in. Like I'd hold them up against any prelay actor and go, not only are we doing similar work here, but do not underestimate the specific skill set that a Jeremy Lee, a Cassandra Morris, Brandon Winkler, Xander Mobus, any of my peers, male and female both, and non-binary, like the special skills that are available that you have to master. It's acting, it's matching, it's dubbing, it's speed talking, it's speed reading sometimes. Like, you're juggling a lot of plates when you're dubbing, and what's so weird is it's seen as the romper room, or the trash bin of the entertainment industry. Well, if you can't do anything else, you may as well go dub something, right? But season 2 of the Ultraman anime just released on Netflix, and Josh Hutcherson is our main, and it's a star-studded cast. Like, if you look up any of the cast members in that show, they all have on-camera credits, lots of dubbing credits, regular U.S. cartoon animation credits. Like, it's a star-studded cast of some of the best in the business, because it's such a great property. But it doesn't pay much, and a lot of it ends up being non-union, which means a lot of Hollywood actors won't go for it. And it's really unfortunate, because the amount, for a couple of reasons actually. Here's a little business background. Like, anime's $1 billion industry, and nobody in the business, with the exception of the folks who own the IPs and the content and license the content, is really making a living wage. Like, I couldn't live just on dubbing. And the people who do live on their dubbing gigs are usually supplementing with appearances and other things. Because if it was just what you were getting paid in session for doing that, I mean, you may as well be working fast food. for what you're putting in and getting out.
Oh wow.
And
Okay.
I'm not bemoaning my status as an actor. I have the best job in the world, and I think I'm not speaking for any of my peers. I don't think any of them would complain about their lives. I would just say,
No. Didn't take
I
it
would
that
just
way.
say, there is a disparity there. There's a disparity between the demand for anime and I've come to understand that I guess the artists aren't being paid a living wage either. So that's really interesting. But I love
That is
working in it
interesting.
and I love doing it. It's super fun.
No, it's actually kind of really great information. Again, it's a side of the business that unless you're on that side, you're not going to really know or understand. So, and I get what you're saying. So it sounds like when you do anime, it's more as a supplement more than a mainstay.
I mean, I think there are definitely people who do it mainstay for themselves. I don't mean to go back on anything I just said. I would just say that I know what typical rates are, and the people who are making mainstay are either getting above scale rates or are negotiating their own rates, or in many cases are supplementing with weekend appearances and conventions and signings,
Sure.
and those kinds of things, because it does pay so little, and it's very expensive to live in Los Angeles. What's
Yeah.
great about post-COVID is that many studios that used to be come to our house and play. You got to come to the studio. We want to get the quality audio. They're realizing that technology has caught up. Has advanced, I should say. Right. They're catching up to where technology is. And you can have a blue snowball, just like Nick does, and still get studio quality sound out of that microphone in the right environment.
Right.
You can have an Audio-Technica AT2020 and record things that go to production as long as you have the right, settings and environment.
Right.
And you've got the software to allow everybody to record live all at once. So what's been great about that is that you have seen this wider net cast. If for all of you who are listening to this who want to be a voice actor, you don't necessarily have to move to Los Angeles, at least not just to be able to go to studios. Now, there's an argument to be made that if you are trying to build a career, you probably want to establish yourself as a known quantity and get some face time face-to-face with studios and casting directors and other people.
Right.
But if you're like Roger Craig Smith, you can have done that for 20 years and decide, I'm going to move to Idaho. See ya. And he works all the time from Idaho, and sometimes flies in. I think to I don't mean to speak for him, but I understand that he flies in sometimes when necessary. So, it's a wide open door. It's so different than it has ever been.
Right.
Because of technology.
Absolutely.
So I know that we are the Funny Science Fiction Podcast. We are a sci-fi based
Sometimes.
show. Sometimes we're funny, but I know that we try to be sci-fi.
Not when I'm here. It's the Bring You Down Science Fiction Podcast.
We're the informational science
That's right.
fiction podcast.
Yes, this is the NPR version of the Funny Science Fiction Podcast. My guests today are Nick Stockbridge, Tim DeSiegel, and Kathleen Wass. I would like to ask all of you, what is your economic purview of the industry as it stands? Kathleen?
Oh, that's awesome.
That's ridiculous. I love it. But looking through your IMDb, I realized that I've more frequently heard your voice recently in things like Doc McStuffins and Elena of Avalor because of my 3-year-old daughter. But now you mentioned pre-show, the Batwheels show coming this fall, which is
for those who are watching on YouTube,
exciting.
that's the Batwheels logo. It's coming up soon.
So having done superhero shows, video games, anime, kids shows, which do you love the most? Which one is the one that you have the most fun with?
Gosh, I have fun in so many different kinds of shows in different ways, but I do have an answer to your question. Using Arcane and What If as an example, I love high-end drama. It's so much fun to play in high-end drama. And/or, which I don't get to do a whole lot of, I do mostly as a hobby on the side, horror. I love to do horror audio. I love to do, I'm on the No Sleep podcast. I've got my own podcast that is an anthology of horror, PG-13 rated horror stories, kind of like Twilight Zone-esque.
Sure.
There's a little cussing in them. They're definitely dark themes, but we try to be, I won't call us family friendly, but it's not like we're just gore fests.
Right.
There's not a whole lot
Yeah,
of gore.
I gotcha.
You know. Anyway, I love to work in that medium, but high-end drama, when I get to book a gig that's like Arcane, and I get to bring this otherwise otherworldly voice that everyone is worried is going to go cartoony, and give him heart and soul.
And be able to not only be this character, but have an emotional depth to him, and let him experience loss, as well as joy, whenever it is appropriate.
Like that, that's the most fun ever.
That's cool.
You know, junior shows are super fun because they tend to be written, at least the ones that I've had the privilege of being a part of, are usually written by really smart people who are not just, you know, making kids content to get it on the air, but they're really trying to give something to the preschool age children that watch, to help them socialize and see the world and value the world and whatnot. I've been so grateful to work with Craig Gerber on both of his shows to date. Elena of Avalor, Sophia the First, with Chris Nee on Doc McStuffins. Like, some of this writing for littles is still captivating for adults, and it speaks up to them in a way they can understand. I don't know who the magician is over at Disney Junior that is tapping everybody's brain and putting like the basics of child development in everyone's mind, but Disney's got something. Some other networks maybe not as much. Some other networks might be more talking down to a child, depending on the actual property. But I've had a great time, and that's what makes it a great time, is being able to play characters that are fun and a little more three-dimensional than preschool shows tend to allow.
Yeah.
They push the boundary in an upward direction in a really good way. I was on Elena of Avalor as Bruce the Butterfrog, and his whole bit, he was a one-line bit, basically, where he's this person who's like in the way of the group of heroes trying to get to point A or point B, and he's in the way, and he starts complaining about them blocking the sun, and he won't move so that they can keep going, and they have this bit. It was a one-bit thing. Then they brought Bruce back for another bit, and you know why? Because I played him like Don Rickles. I just basically did my Don Rickles guy, and most of you don't even know who Don Rickles is, for crying out loud. But it was just, grumpy old man. Grumpy old man with an acerbic wit. And so, obviously, it's a junior show. I can't go full Don Rickles. But Bruce the Butterfrog was kind of like that. Hey, you're standing in my sun. Get out of my sun. I'm trying to tan here. I get one day a year. Come on. Right? It was kind of that Mr. Potato Head feel. And he ended up having, they gave him an episode, I want to say, in the third or fourth season, where he was like the hinge of the episode. He was transforming everybody into all these magical creatures because he somehow got some magic powers. And then by the end of it, he was put in his place. But that's the kind of writing that is super fun to play in, because you can play more, diverse characters. And then, I get to work on shows for creators like Butch Hartman, whether it's Tough Puppy or the later years of Fairly Odd Parents, when you go into the session and everybody calls it the screaming session, because everybody's talking about this loud, Timmy, right? We're all projecting to the rafters, and that's a down and dirty session where everyone in the room, it's Butch on the helm, and his room of writers have all come into the booth. Everybody knows that this is a comedy show. It feels very like 1950s television comedy, because you've got the writers' room here, you got the actors out there, and we're doing 2 takes. Then we're getting pickups if you didn't catch it in one of those 2 takes, and we're moving on because we got comedy to make. And it's super fun. There's so many fun experiences across the genres. It's a great time. It's the best job in the world, as Rob Paulson says.
Yes, he does.
We've had the chance to talk to him. He was amazing.
Yeah, he's one of my heroes in this business. I won't lie.
Good reason.
I peed a little when I got a chance to, and Legends of Awesomeness, come in and watch him do his thing. He was I think he played one ancillary character in the first season. And it's because the director, showrunner of the show was involved with Pinky and the Brain and Animaniacs back in the day and had a working relationship with Rob. And then we're like, we need somebody to play the sweet dad who gets captured. Rob, come in and play that. And the casting director knew I was a big fan. And so she's like, well, you're not called till 11, but the person before you is Rob Paulson. So if you wanted to come in at like 10:45 or something and catch Rob before he's done, I'd be like, are you kidding me? Yes, please, for the love of mud. Right? Yeah.
We understand.
Oh yeah.
When we had him on the show, I peed a little bit when we talked to him. It's good.
Because there is that moment when you go to enter a Zoom meeting that the rest of us are here, and then it does the whoever our guest is in the waiting room, and you have that moment of reading the name, and you're like.
So yeah, I'll announce it out. I'm like, hey, so and so's getting ready to come in, and we have to get all our fanboying out before that person comes in, so that we can seem like normal people when they come in and we say hello.
You get all your schoolgirl squeeze out first.
Exactly.
We try to fool you into thinking we're normal.
And you're doing a very good job. I would never have known you were in an alien culture.
Thanks.
Hey,
Very
Appreciate that.
You reminded me of D'Onofrio in Men in Black, the farmer who's like
Edgar.
Edgar. Thank you. I knew somebody would get that reference. Nice.
I love
Water with sugar
or sugar.
In our Rob Paulson interview, he was literally sitting outside of a Starbucks using Starbucks Wi-Fi for our interview.
That's
and
awesome.
Jumping between his normal voice and his character voices, and I'm like, I'm waiting for somebody in the background to just do that. Like, wait, what?
What is happening there? Who is that man?
Was that Carl Weezer?
Oh my gosh, his Carl Weezer is so good.
You should watch the interview. There's he breaks into song as Carl. It's awesome.
Oh, I love it.
Honestly,
version of Stacey's mom.
Yeah, I honestly had to go back, and it took me a couple rewatches, honestly, and I'm sad to say this. I thought there were people sitting behind him. I didn't realize that he was sitting against the glass, and that was actually just his reflection in the glass till like a couple weeks ago.
That's
Was it?
Yeah, oh, good. I'm not the only one. Nick didn't notice it either. All right.
Well,
We're special.
Observant, very observant. Both.
Very.
I did the editing.
Obviously, you paid so much attention.
So we have a Facebook group over 203,000 members, and it has just filled. Yeah, it's just filled with memes, and it's memes of this and this and funny science fiction memes. So which two of your characters would you like to see battle in a Arcane battle style?
Oh gosh. Who would I like to see battle? I think you get a good show out of Iron Man. And I mean, this is gonna feel so cliche because all we've really talked about today is Iron Man and Heimerdinger, but they would be a great battle. They're both technological geniuses. One obviously is a support hero, and one is what we would probably call a damage per second, a DPS hero. But they would throw down. Although if I'm going deep dive on this, though, I'd love to see H.P. Lovecraft from Bungu Stray Dogs. That's an anime character that I did, who has his power is simply called Elder Gods.
Because Cthulhu.
Mm-hmm. And I'd love to see him go down against, I don't know, who else have I played? Give me a minute. I'd love to see him go against Kane Madhouse from To the Abandoned Sacred Beasts. Koslow from Attack on Titan might have a nice time, getting bossed around by oh gosh. Who else have I played? Boss from Akibus Beat. Yeah, I don't want to lose the audience by all these people going, who are those characters? What is he talking about? I would love to see Poe take on anybody because, the Panda's a kung fu master, and that's always a great, phenomenal show. So Poe versus Iron Man might be fun. Yeah, those are my picks.
Solid picks.
Thank you.
All right, Mick, we're at the stage of the show where we like to take our guests through a little bit of a quiz.
Okay.
All right. So this is a 4-question quiz. Each question is multiple choice.
Okay.
So the quiz is entitled The Year of the Release. And so we're going to give you 4 different titles of projects that you've worked on and 3 different possible years that title was released.
Okay.
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 And you'll have to pick it. Now, if you get 3 of the 4 questions correct, we'd like to send you this book, which is entitled Custodians of the Cosmos. It's written by Drayton Allen, also known as Nick's dad.
Oh,
but
cool.
it's a book about a young man who wanted to join something quite like Starfleet, but not like Starfleet for very obvious litigious reasons. But he wasn't able to join, so he washed out and came back as a custodian to boldly clean up after those who had boldly just went. So
That's funny. Well, I hope I can answer these because now
Yeah.
I'm interested in the book.
yeah,
Don't
and
tease me this way.
I know I'm trying not to. But if you get less than the 3 questions correct, we just talked about all those memes. We take your picture, we make a meme out of you, and we put you into our Facebook group. It's called our Fun Sequence.
Oh no. All right. I'm
I-
game.
I love the excitement of the. Oh, I might get a book.
I get a book.
Wait.
Yay! I get a
Wait,
meme.
a meme.
You're gonna like.
Ah.
It'll be very tastefully done. Dan Povenmire is a former meme recipient, so you're good
Oh,
company.
good.
Goosebumps 2, Slappy's Revenge. Did that come out in 2005, 2015, or 2008?
2015.
No, unless
Hold on, Mick.
Tim's wrong.
No, we were gonna say if IMDb was wrong. Hold on a second.
Are you talking about Haunted Halloween? Goosebumps 2, the feature, Haunted Halloween? Because that's what I was in.
I think we need to start fact checking Tim's questions.
Yeah, for sure. Listen, I want my book. I'm gonna make a meme out of you.
You might get that opportunity if this continues on. Let's see.
Kathleen, are you speedy on the Google?
I put in the wrong date. I forgot the one. It's a 2018.
Whoa.
So
That wasn't even an option, and I still got it right.
yeah. So you got it right. Congratulations. And I suck at typing. So
Thank goodness.
I feel mostly unconfident about the next 3. So let's go.
Well, let's see how it goes.
All right. Arcane. Is it 2020, 2021, or 2019?
2021.
That is correct.
It was slated for 2020.
But then, the world shut down.
Yes.
Jumanji, the video game.
Oh no.
that
Oh man.
2014, 2020, or 2019?
I'm gonna have to say 2019.
You are correct.
Yes. Oh,
And that's the book. There you go. You get the book.
yes! I get the book.
Despite my inefficiencies at typing, you have
It's
bested
been a
that quiz.
long week, Tim. We'll give
It has
you,
been.
we'll
Yeah.
give you a little bit of a break there. All right, but question number 4 to see if you can completely destroy Tim's quiz.
Okay.
Mass Effect 2 was that 2010, 2015, or 2012?
That was 2010.
That is correct. And you
Yes.
destroyed
Continuity
Tim's
cop
quiz.
right here.
4 for 4. Very good job. All right.
Well, Mick, thank you so much for being on the show today. Where can our listeners go to find out more about you and what you're working on now?
Yeah, you can go and follow me on all my socials, which are at Mick Wingert. That's Instagram and Twitter mostly. I'm also on Facebook, but I'm rarely there. So follow me on Twitter. That's where you're probably going to mostly hear from me. Although now that Elon Musk has bought it, I don't know. Anyway, I'm there for now. I'm on Instagram. It's my first and last name with a little @ symbol in front of it. It's all one word. Thankfully, I got both in both of those socials. The Hidden Frequencies is my podcast. You can find it at thehiddenfrequencies.com, all one word. Don't forget the in the beginning of it. You can also listen to it on everywhere it's available: Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and wherever you get your favorite podcast. It has an RSS feed. So thehiddenfrequencies.com. And then if you want to check me out as a coach and or voiceover teacher, you can do that through mickwingert.com. That's also, there's a contact form if you wanted to reach out and say hello or ask a question. Can't guarantee that I'll get back to you right away, but I try. I try to get back to everybody. mickwingert.com.
Well, we are going to link all of those in our show description so that our viewers and our listeners can check that out.
Awesome.
And we want to remind everybody that subscribing is the single most important thing that you can do to help our show to continue to grow. And we get amazing guests like Mick Wingert here today to have these great conversations with and these funny moments for you to be able to listen to. So please subscribe. It helps out well more than we'll ever be able to tell you. And just as a reminder, it's that little button down there at the bottom of the screen. And make sure that you go out and you check out Mick's work as well. He's a fun follow. I follow him on Twitter. It's a good time. So,
Yay.
However, if you are not happy with the content of our show today, please feel free to lodge a complaint with the head of our complaint department. That would be Tony Stark, aka Iron Man. But please do be sure to bring multiple copies of your complaint, but only hand it to Happy. Tony doesn't like to be handed things. You'll get used to that over time. And if your complaint fits in between his afternoon nap and his pre-dinner Bloody Mary, then you have the chance of follow through, provided, of course, that he can find that copy of your complaint. Hopefully Happy gave one of those complaints to Pepper Potts, because let's be honest, Pepper is the logistical part of this operation. And if she's got it, then for sure, we will be dealt with in the order of which our complaint was received.
Well, thanks again, Mick.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thank you very much. All right, guys, that's going to conclude us for Funny Science Fiction. Goodbye.
Yeah.
On behalf of the rest of the hosts of Funny Science Fiction, we'd like to thank you for listening to this episode. If you'd like to be a guest on one of our future episodes, please contact us by means of our Facebook group, Funny Science Fiction. You can find us on Twitter or Instagram using the handle @FunnySci-Fi, or you can go to DraytonAllen.com and click the Contact Me link at the bottom of the page. Thanks again. Hope you enjoyed the episode.